Welcome to another episode of Wrestling Tonight, where we break down the week in wrestling for you in a bite-sized, sample size, whatever you want to talk about it. Live from the No Cell Studios at the Acefield Tavern, Acefield Retro, and as always, joined on a Monday with the one bad Chad, talking about all the news. What's up, dude?
Not a whole lot, man. There's, the CM Punk train continues to roll on. We'll have some of that news. We got some good, big stories to talk about. Showing some love to some of the other promotions out there. It's going to be a fun episode, man. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And please, if you're watching on YouTube, jump in the comments, share, like, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate anybody watching out there.
And who knows, maybe CM Punk will show up here. He's making the round tour. He went to Impact. He's at Raw. Maybe he's going to show up here at the Tavern. We don't know. We have an overlay made for CM Punk to pop in if you want. So, Phil, if I know you blocked me on Instagram, but if you'd like to be a part of the stream, I'm sure, pop in. We sent him the link to at CM Punk on Instagram, so maybe he'll say hi.
Yeah, jump in anytime, Phil. Jump in anytime.
Speaking of jumping in, let's get to our big stories, man. Let's break it down. Let's not waste any time.
Let's do it.
Big stories. Story 1.
Story number 1, and seems like she's been forgotten as far as free agency goes. She was because tied with Mercedes Moné. Trinity has been one of those people. I mean, obviously, you know her as Naomi in WWE. She's the first ever SmackDown Women's Champion. She made her debut in Impact, and then Impact kind of buried the lead here, talked a little bit about it prior, saying they're going to have a big surprise for Chicago. And boy, was it a big surprise. Happy to see Trinity. She is, I mean, by all intents and purposes, a huge star. This is a huge get for Impact.
Huge get. Like you said, I feel like she's kind of been forgotten because, dude, she hasn't wrestled since May of 2022. It's crazy that it's almost been a year since we saw her in the squared circle. And, Impact did bury the lead a little bit and kind of gave away. I think they did that just because it's taped and they knew it was going to drop. It was going to leak out anyways. But what an addition to, in my opinion, one of the more underrated women's rosters in pro wrestling. Like, to see Trinity Fatu with, the Jordan Graces, Deonna Purrazzo's, Killer Kellys, Masha Slamovich, what a roster. And Trinity kind of spoke to that. I'm excited to see her in Impact. I'm glad she went there. I didn't think she was going to go to AEW, but I'm glad that Impact needs, they got Nick Aldis. We talked about that last week. This week, we're talking Trinity and Impact. I mean, Impact's making some moves. I like it.
Yeah, and I'm not closing the book on her showing up potentially at ROH. We had her in the crowd for one of the tapings, and I think there's some thing going on with Athena potentially at one of these bigger events, and I think that's going to happen. And that's the best spot for her being Impact because of the relationships Impact has with all these different promotions. She'll have the flexibility and the versatility to work GCW if she wants to go to New Japan. This is the perfect landing spot to have consistent bookings, be on TV from week to week every Thursday. You guys can check them out. But also, it leans into, you won't be locked in full time like you were with WWE. I mean, gone a year ago. I mean, at this point, maybe over a year ago, they had walked away. Her and Mercedes had walked away from WWE. And Mercedes was, again, the main story in this because you tie yourself with someone like Sasha Banks, you're going to be forgotten about. But I like that she's going through her own path. And we're seeing Mercedes go through these. I mean, there was a buzz initially for her coming into New Japan and also Stardom, but that's kind of quieted down. And I like how the spotlight has moved over to Trinity Fatu, and she's going to get a lot of love for a bit, and she's going to have her chance this week. And they're going to show a promo segment this week on Thursday, airing on May 4th. And they're setting up a match with Kylan King, which is being taped. It was taped yesterday as we're recording this. So she's right off to the races here. And with Under Siege coming up, she might have a main program. Deonna Purrazzo obviously is the Knockouts champion. So a lot of good stuff on the horizon for her.
Yeah, there's so many great dream matches for me to see. Because I honestly think that Naomi in WWE, I never felt like she truly got what she deserved. Like, I feel like, and maybe Sasha was a little bit like that. I think Sasha's star power was really big in WWE, but she never had like that long dominant title reign. Like, I feel like she was always a transitional champion. She was always dropping it to Charlotte or someone. And Trinity's kind of the same way. Like, I feel like they never realized Naomi's true potential in WWE. Like if they really strapped the rocket to Naomi, she could have been an even bigger star. I know she got what was it? The Funkadactyls she got started with.
Yep. Brodus Clay.
And they were pretty big. They were over, but man, when she went out on her own, I thought they had so much to do with her that they never really pulled the trigger on. But man, Trinity and Impact, like you said, it gives her a lot of wiggle room because Sasha or Mercedes Moné was there in support of her friend. We know that Impact has done the multiverse show on Mania weekend where they're kind of working together with New Japan. Impact, like you said, they're pretty open of letting their talent work with other promotions. Maybe this is a way where both Trinity and Mercedes can do their own thing, but it also allows them to work together in one-off situations if need be. And I think this strengthens the possibility of Mercedes possibly getting that dream match she wants with Mickie James, because she's mentioned that's one of the matches she wants when she's on her world tour. I don't know, man. It's exciting. And it just takes me back to, last May when they walked out on WWE and everyone was like, is this a work? Is this legit? Some fans were mad saying they shouldn't have bet on themselves. They should have just done what the company wanted them to do. And then you had people like Dax and Cash coming out in support and saying, hey, you got to stand up for yourself. And it's funny that it was all up in the air. Like, is this a real thing? And now we're seeing Trinity's in Impact. Mercedes is obviously New Japan. It's exciting, man. I love seeing big talent kind of spread the love around to these other promotions.
Yeah. And she was interviewed by NBC Chicago leading up to this, and she had to go out and check out this interview. You could see the passion and, that she spoke with being able to debut for Impact. And this is a chance for her to have, like I mentioned before, the spotlight on her and not be cast, because she didn't easy in. I'm sure any place would have taken her, and she could have been paired with Mercedes, especially when this initially happened. This was the top story in the news before the wrestling world caught fire with a lot of the other stuff that went down. But this was a big piece of, she was always tied with Sasha Banks, and she's rewriting her legacy. And I think with Impact, every other place wants to play ball and have the flexibility to do these super shows, and everybody but WWE. So I like the fact that they are paving the way to recreate magic in the women's division elsewhere. It's not just, oh, we want a main event WrestleMania. But if you look at the women's division, and I've been speaking on Honor Society, they are building a special women's division in ROH. And you could speak about the AEW women's division. They've come a very long way with what they've done. And now Impact is continuing that drive. They got legends, they got future stars, and they got current stars. There's star power all over women's wrestling. And this leaves it open. Like we mentioned before, Trinity could work GCW. Trinity could work New Japan Pro Wrestling sooner than later. It's not like she's locked up, because all these other companies are willing to allow these guys to go out there and be able to have these dream matches. They're possibilities, and WWE didn't allow it to happen. I'm happy for them standing their ground and not crawling back. I love to see wrestling thriving and not just WWE getting what they want.
I'm with you, man. I love when talent bets on themselves. And there is a little bit of, I think, fans and I would be interested to dig into the dark corners of these former WWE superstars who venture out and work for an Impact or a New Japan. And like, is there any ounce in their mind where they feel like it's a step down? Do they feel like we're not in the major leagues anymore? Now I'm working at Impact. Is there any of that in there? I mean, I'm sure some people, when you go from the big leagues, it's different in wrestling, though. It's not like someone in the NFL going to the Canadian Football League or the Arena League. Like, I feel like it's different. I don't look at wrestlers who leave WWE as, well, now they're going to the minors. I really feel like this is a place where you can carve out legacy that another company wasn't providing you. And I really think sometimes people can become way bigger stars. I mean, we've seen Drew McIntyre leave, come back, and maybe this is a road for them to one day come back to WWE under a different sheen. But to go into Impact, to have that name value, and to enter into a roster, like you said, this isn't AEW is kind of different. It's a new company. They have years to go before they really have what Impact even has. Impact has been around since the early 2000s. They have established legacy athletes. I think I saw a clip of Trinity's promo where she was talking about being there, and the names she mentioned Awesome Kong, Gail Kim. These are women that don't wrestle there right now, but those are the legends of TNA/Impact that she's walking in the footsteps of. And I don't know, it's an exciting thing because, you know, Mickey James is there right now. Like, they have blue chip prospects and they have legends, and to see someone who carved such a popular path for herself in WWE to now come over and contribute to that. I mean, guys, if you're not watching Impact, the women's division over there is next level. There's talent over there that I think any promotion in the world would want to have. I think of Jordan Grace. I think of Deanna. I mean, there are Masha even crushing it over there, and she's the GCW champion, not the women's champion. She's the GCW champion right now. It's just an exciting time. I love seeing promotions outside of the big American too, you know, AEW, WWE. I like seeing rosters thicken up and get that star power. I think it helps everyone, man. And I think Impact really now has the benefit of not being the perceived number two. We've heard Dave Meltzer talk about it. Like, when you're number two and you're not competing with number one, like you're the clear-cut number two, it's a hard position to be in for a company to just kind of differentiate yourself from the pack as just the clear number two. But when number two, that spot is filled, it allows promotions like Impact, MLW to not worry about the stigma of being number two. You can just kind of focus on your own thing. And I think we're seeing that with MLW doing some fun, exciting stuff, with Impact doing fun, exciting stuff. Even NWA is trying to pull themselves out of the pandemic slug that they were in. So it's good for pro wrestling to see people like Trinity going to promotions like Impact.
Speaking to your point about feeling like it's lesser than, I think a couple years ago, maybe, but I think at this point, and you could thank AEW for that with creating this elsewhere, a bigger place elsewhere. And is Impact lower than AEW and WWE? Maybe categorically, but as diehard wrestling fans, there's enough content to consume everywhere to have a big stage to perform. And I think what you spoke to is a beautiful thing. I mean, the not being number two is almost a blessing, because having the opportunity to just be who you are and develop a personality and let your women's division prosper and not worry about bringing in Lita or Trish Stratus or trying your best to just get that main publicity in the news cycle. They don't have to do that. They know where to be found. They're giving out consistent quality product, and they're seeing the fruits of their labor by building this division. It's not just the women's division. It's the tag division. It's the world division, the X division. There's a lot of good stories being told. And I think wrestling fans are starting to really get behind Impact, and you're not hearing the same jokes. Like, I mean, the meme always was like, what is Trinity doing in the Impact Zone? Making fun of them making signings and just taking ex-WWE guys. Trinity doesn't feel like and I understand she made her living in WWE and that's where she created her star power. This doesn't feel like a consolation prize. It feels like she's going there to really focus on wrestling and being able to take that path, similar to Mercedes, who's for the first time, we're seeing her have to be challenging herself athletically, because she was cream of the crop in the WWE women's division. And she was putting on matches that were considered great in WWE, but she's learning a different style. And I think both these women are better for it. So they're giving themselves different opportunities, and they're going to be seen in different lights. Just, 12 months from now, they may want to go back to WWE, or they may never want to work that style again. And that's, that's awesome where we are in wrestling. You don't even have to be signed to a main company to make a living doing this. It just speaks to how wrestling is thriving and giving talent options. We're as close to a unionization of the talent than ever, because options create opportunity. And at this point, Trinity just flexed her muscles and said, I don't have to go back to you. I don't even have to even think about going back to you. I can wait my time, and I am valued elsewhere. And she's going to be showcased here. And I think everybody should check it out.
And I think the one thing fans, get excited about when there's a big free agent, especially from WWE that's going to land in another company. We get excited for seeing them with the leash off, them with absolute freedom to be able to show what maybe they couldn't show in Stamford. But having seen how AEW handles a lot of free agents, I think Impact is almost the place where you can see real true freedom, even more so than AEW. But not to say AEW doesn't let their talent be themselves. I think they do. But with AEW, there's so many people there right now that the roster is so big, and the hours they have on national television to present that roster, sometimes it is harder to get seen in AEW. Even if you have the freedom when you get your little segment on TV, it's harder to get that. But with Impact, when Impact gets a talent like a Trinity, you know, hey, you're going to instantly contribute. We're going to put you out there. We're going to hitch our wagon to you. We're going to push you. And on top of that, we're going to let you be yourself. So when I see a Nick Aldis, when I see a Trinity, when I see people like that go to Impact, I get even a little more excited than I do when somebody pops up in AEW, because I'm like, they don't have this supersized roster. They utilize who they have.
Yep.
Nobody just sits in catering at Impact. You are used. So that excites me for Trinity, to really see what she can do from a freedom point of view.
Yeah, and there's a lot of respect for betting on yourself, as you mentioned before, and understanding that she is a value to whatever promotion she goes to, and she doesn't have to lean on, FKA, formerly known as, on an independent poster saying, formerly known as Naomi in WWE. Gone are those days. So whatever the Fed brain wants to say, AEW has created an environment that is conducive for wrestlers and wrestling fans to have options where you're not just to sit in front of your TV Monday and Friday and expect, like, no matter what, I have to watch this if I want wrestling.
Right.
That's a different sector wrestling. You like WWE, do it. But I love that someone like Trinity just said, no, I'm going to go elsewhere and carve my own legacy and be better for it. And fans are going to be in for a huge surprise. We're going to see great things from Trinity throughout the summer and fall. I can't wait for it.
I can't wait for it. And AEW, like you kind of alluded to it a little bit, the existence of AEW has made these other promotions flourish as well.
100%.
Because if you look at the state of Impact Wrestling 2018, before AEW came into existence, it was struggling, man.
Yeah.
Like they have reaped the rewards of AEW dropping into that number 2 spot. And the thing with Trinity that I love, it's not a big transition for me from like the FKA Naomi of WWE, because a lot of fans, WWE fans, especially, who were watching Total Divas, Trinity, that she went by her shoot name there. So we're kind of conditioned to already know that name. And I'll be honest, like, there's been times in my fandom where I'm like, does she go by Trinity or Naomi? Like, I'm always like, which one's her shoot name? What's her stage name? Like, so she's kind of already like warmed us up to Trinity Fatu.
Yeah, again, gone are the days with Impact where you just change a letter in your name or just do something clever. I said, AEW created this environment where people can go elsewhere and be stars in their own right. WWE is not the only platform, especially with the world becoming smaller, where it's not just cable driven. It's something goes viral, something goes crazy on Instagram or YouTube. Impact has just as much opportunity to get eyes on it as well. They don't have to be tied to USA Network. And yeah, Impact doesn't have the TV deal, or MLW doesn't have the same TV deal that AEW and WWE do, but they have the same opportunity to get eyes on their product because wrestling is thriving. We're in a boom period right now. It just looks different.
100%. I truly believe if you're not just a fed brain WWE mark and you're really just in it for the love of pro wrestling, we are in a modern day territory system in a way.
Yeah.
Like every promotion out there, from the GCWs to the Impacts, the AEWs, the MLWs, the NWAs, the New Japans, the NOAHs, the Stardoms, like there's so much out there. And a lot of those promotions, like you mentioned earlier, most of those promotions are working together in some form or fashion. AAA, like they're sharing talent, they're sending people around. The only one that's not really doing that is WWE. So it's like there's WWE, and then there's this almost contemporary modern day territory system a little bit, and it's fun.
And even the independents, I could speak to that as well. You get those guys thriving as well. You see some of the faces from AEW, from Impact, working local indies, and it's just good for everybody. And, you know, I like you mentioned, modern day territory, however you want to spin it, it feels like wrestling is in a very collaborative mindset where you go back even 5 years ago, that doesn't exist, where there was locked up. You had guys waiting out their contracts and waiting another 90 days to get on there. And that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah.
And even if there's something out there for everybody and you don't have enough time to consume all of it, but that is a beautiful thing because that means there's an interest, and we're only going to see the fruits of that because WWE is going to be challenged. You want to wax poetic about the bloodline and everything that went on WrestleMania 39, how good it was. Well, you could thank everybody else for challenging WWE and putting a fire under their ass for the first time in 4 years.
Exactly.
Speaking of WWE, let's talk about our second big story here.
Let's do it.
Big story 2.
So we saw on Raw last week, WWE introduced a new world title, and we also had the draft beginning. And according to Sports Illustrated, Vince McMahon was not involved in the decision to add not a first, not a second, but a third world title into the mix. Triple H obviously made the announcement. We're going to get a new champion crowned at Night of Champions, formerly known as King of the Ring, in the Saudi Arabia show, May 27th. So about a month from that, 3 weeks, something like that. And the promo that Triple H cut was pretty much talking about how the fans deserve another champion, that the title's been locked up. But I'll just say it here. 2 words here: consolation and lazy. You had the opportunity to get the titles off of Roman. And I'll just say it right here. The legacy of this title is right now, the reign is with the Universal Championship. That's the over 1,000 days. Yep. That's where they're going towards, building up bigger storylines with that. But there's ways, if you're creative and flexible and have the depth in storytelling, to get the WWE title off of Roman. And I'll say it right here. And again, triple threat match. There's a way to strip him of the title. Now you have 3 world titles. This is a consolation that nobody needs. It messes up the lineage. It's just, again, WWE is whatever they want to do. But I can't believe people are being like, this is a good idea. This seems horrible.
This is muddying the waters. And it kills me because the same people that are, for whatever reason, supporting this are the same people that bitch about AEW has too many titles that don't mean anything, or the WWE tag division, women's tag division isn't, it's too many. They don't have a roster big enough, a division big enough to support those titles. And then it's the people that are tired of Roman's reign, for lack of a better word to say. It's people that are tired of that have an okay mindset on this new title. And I'm with you, Ace. Here, when I see this, of course, consolation prize pops into mind. But even more so than that, this is fear. This is lazy ass booking. This is fear, man. This is WWE being scared to make a big call and take these titles off of Roman in some form or fashion. They want him to hold these titles, but they also want another champion because they know you can feel that they need to split these titles, but they're scared to take it off of their bell cow, their money man. It's driven by fear. They want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to have Roman, but they want another champion. Dude, I am in the camp. I do not like the idea of them splitting the titles off of Roman. Like he's held these 2 titles. I feel like if he loses one, then you lose steam on losing the other. I think he should have been beaten for both titles. And then when the next guy gets those titles, then you have an opportune time to somehow split those where it doesn't take anything off of this historic reign that Roman's been on. But this is them not having the balls to make a big decision. And to me, like, everyone was debating after Mania 39, like, should Cody have won? You know, everyone's chimed in on it, from Stone Cold saying it was the right move to let Roman continue. And when it first happened that night, I was pissed, and we've talked about it. And I came around to it, and I'm like, no, if they do it right, if they book it, I'm all for it. But a decision like this instantly makes me backpedal on that. And now I'm like, I think they did make a mistake. If they're going to muddy the waters by bringing in a third title, we have 2 brands, man. There's no justification for a third title. Talk about like 3 world champions. What are we, boxing?
Right.
Like WBA, like all of these boxing promotions with all of these heavyweight champions, like it muddies it. It devalues your championships. And I hope they're not. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they've been clear about it. I really hope this new title, they aren't attaching the lineage of this to the big gold belt. Is this a fresh start, Ace, or are they attaching this to the history of the big gold?
They didn't say that, but I would assume they're attaching it to the original World Heavyweight Championship, which was awarded to Triple H in 2002. So the guys like Batista, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, Booker T, all those guys that held the World Heavyweight Championship on the Raw brand. And I think you could trace this mistake all the way back to them giving Roman the Universal Championship. Because if this was the WWE Championship that had the 1,000 days attached to it, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. They would have liquidated the Universal title. The problem is, at this point, the WWE lineage, the title goes all the way back to Pedro Morales, Bruno Sammartino, all those guys, while the reign is tied to the Universal title. So they have a couple choices here, and they're not good ones. You can combine the reigns and start to have this like sort of staggered title reign where you're combining the Universal and WWE Championship, or you get rid of the WWE Championship, or you have both. I still stand by, if you want to have Roman go into WrestleMania 40 as champion, which I believe they should do at this point. There's no reason they shouldn't.
They have to.
What they should have done is either just have Triple H on Raw, strip Roman of that WWE Championship. He doesn't get pinned. That title, he's only been holding that for a year. And I know we say only a year, but he won that at WrestleMania from Brock Lesnar. So doing that, you take the title off, and then you put that title in the air for Night of Champions, and then you crown a new champion. Because at least Seth Rollins, when he inevitably wins it, or whoever it winds up being, has the lineage of that title instead of this brand new title, which, like we said, could have the original Ruthless Aggression type of flair to it, pun intended, with the big gold. But to me, it's stupid, because the other thing you could do, and they've done a great job of it, to give them credit, the mid-card titles feel more important than ever. What should be done, and I understand TV executives don't want to hear this, to have the US title or the IC title being the main title on your brand, but you are the master of the story. If you want Gunther to be your main guy, draft him to Raw, have that be the main title that everyone fights over, because at the end of the day, the championship is as important as you present it. If you make the Intercontinental title be like Pat Patterson brought this in Brazil,
right,
every time it was defended, go down the list of guys that held it: Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat. You could use that, and then when the time comes, WrestleMania 40, split the title, and the IC title benefits from it. There's no easy answer to this, but all I know is a third world title for 2 brands, it's absolute bullshit, and whoever wins, people will be happy about it. Cool, Seth Rollins has a belt, but you might as well give him the US title. It doesn't matter to me.
And are we really thinking that Fox execs or NBC execs, they're hard-nosed, we need a world champion on our show? What the fuck do they care? I don't buy that. Whenever it's like, well, Fox wants a world champion, so we got to give them one too. Like, are they really in the weeds on the creative storytelling of a promotion like this? I don't know, man. I'm always kind of like you said, if you built up an IC title and that dude is just this dominant force and the storytelling around it is super compelling, that's your flagship champion. You could totally do that. But with fans, I think people like me and you, and there are fans out there that we really respect and hold title lineages and the history behind belts as important.
That's all WWE has, by the way. To me, that's what they have over every other
history.
wrestling company.
That's what they have.
History.
The history of WWE is the most vital aspect of their company for a fan like me. The fact that this belt, they have the belt that Bruno held. That elevates that title. That elevates it beyond the Universal Championship because there's no history to that belt. But then there are fans out there, and I think they probably outnumber fans like me and you. There are fans out there, it's just a title. They don't care. They're not thinking about the WWE Championship being, oh man, Hogan held this. And, they're not thinking like that. It's just a belt that Roman has, and it signifies he's the world champion of the company. History doesn't play a part in a lot of fans' minds. I always relate it to, like music fans. Like, there are music fans out there that they're buying the top 40 stuff. They're listening to the radio. What's the new hits? They're not music historians. They're not going back and listening to the old great shit. There are fans out there that just want to listen to what's hot right now, what's in the top 40, what's playing, who's in concert. And then there are music fans that love the history of it, love where it came from, where it started. And I feel like the casual wrestling fan of today, for the most part, they don't care about belt lineages. And you've kind of listened to some things probably more than me. What is the narrative out there for WWE fans who say this title is a good idea? Like, enlighten me. What is their argument?
I think they just they want Roman to hold the titles, but they don't want him to lose in any capacity. And they want a guy like Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, other main event stars, Drew McIntyre, to have something to wrestle for. But again, I push back on that, and I push it in your court and say the Intercontinental Championship could be just as important, and you have the lineage. Because if you don't have history, what does WWE have? If they don't lean on what has made them great since 1985, WrestleMania 1, what matters at this point? If you're just throwing title lineages away, and everyone, you guys are critical of how the TNT title has been presented just by flopping back and forth. Can you imagine AEW decides, let's make another world championship just so MJF can hold the title for a year? By proxy, it dilutes what Roman Reigns is doing, and also dilutes the rest of the roster, because we're going to add a world title and say it is going to be Seth Rollins, and I think it will be Seth. Seth's going to win the title, but he couldn't take it off of Roman, so you had to create a belt for him because no one can compete with that guy. And what does that say about the rest of your roster? It's a butterfly effect. When you start pulling that thread, the result is not good. So you have to have the balls to create a guy that you want to beat Roman Reigns. And if that guy's Cody Rhodes or it's Seth, whoever it winds up being, you have to have confidence in it. Because now when you go back to when Roman's finally defeated, whether it be in Philly at WrestleMania 40 or they decide to go all the way to WrestleMania 41, it's going to mean less because there's another world title on the roster.
Dude, God help that company if they put this belt on Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, that's another good point.
I mean, God help that company. You want to talk about backlash of, not the pay-per-view, like fan backlash of people calling him a participation trophy champion.
Jesus, yeah.
Put that belt on Cody. It will not do him any good service. Like, I don't think it's going to help anybody who gets it. Finn Balor gets it. It's like, dude, who cares? Seth Rollins, who cares? You had to make a championship because you are scared to take the belt off of Roman. Like, dude, what are we doing here? And this really speaks to the tribalism of pro wrestling fans. And I know people say, especially me and Sneed, we lean AEW. We do an AEW show, the flagship, every Thursday. But I really try to just love pro wrestling. AEW gives me what I prefer, but I'm a WWE kid, man. I grew up on the Monday Night Wars. I love that shit. But the same people, and you mentioned this, the same people that are backing this decision, this shows that they've got the Fed brain, because if this same decision was made by who they call cringy Tony Khan, and they made a second world championship, like you said, Ace, so MJF can hold this title for over a year, and they're like, well, we got these other 2 shows. We got Collision debuting and we got Rampage. So let's put a world champion on Collision. Let's give CM Punk this new world title. And let's let MJF keep this title. They would skewer Tony Khan for this decision. That's why it's like things like this really bring out the tribalism of fans. And you really see where loyalties lie, because I'm going to shit on this decision from Triple H and Vince McMahon. And if Tony Khan did this same thing, me and Sneed would be shitting on that decision because it's not good for pro wrestling, period.
Right. There is a one top guy right now. That's Roman Reigns. And whoever you create, no matter if you put a belt on him, you give him a trophy, you put a medal on his neck, doesn't matter. It's a consolation. Dave Meltzer mentioned this in the newsletter dropped Friday, and he talked about the decision that went into this. And obviously this is Dave Meltzer's opinion. So value it as you do. I do value it, but like to hear his perspective. And he said, and I quote, "The decision to add the second title was the reason last week's the show's name was changed from King and Queen of the Ring to Night of Champions." He continued, "The idea of bringing back the second title back literally dates to when the titles were unified back at April 3rd, 2002 WrestleMania show in Dallas, when Roman Reigns, that's 2022, he put 2002, beat Brock Lesnar. We had been told before the match the company felt it needed 2 titles, but it was also based on the Mania stipulation. It had to wait a certain length of time before creating a second one." And he said, "By November, the idea was the night one of WrestleMania with Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre at the time tabbed for the match, or a 3-way involving Cody Rhodes if Dwayne Johnson had faced Roman Reigns at Mania." So talked about that. We were leading up to WrestleMania about having the WWE title pulled away. If you pull the WWE championship away from Roman Reigns, I don't think it takes anything away from the armor that you've built around him, because the lineage is built around the Universal Championship for Roman. He's establishing that title as an important thing. And I guarantee you, if he went back to August of when he won the title in 2020, when he beat Bray Wyatt at Payback, if this was the WWE Championship, it would have been an easy decision. You just liquidate the Universal title and you create the World Heavyweight Championship that was originally unified back in 2013 when you had Randy Orton and John Cena. Like that's would have been the decision. But right now they have this rock in the hard place, and they took the easy way out. And whatever people are going to look at and be like, it's a beautiful title, it looks like the big goal. To me, again, consolation and lazy, because you want to create new stars. And like you said, Triple H could have easily just grabbed the mic and said the WWE Championship is coming off Roman Reigns no matter what. Have Paul Heyman throw a fit. Roman still doesn't get pinned. He's the Universal Champion. Him holding the same title that he won in Dallas against Lesnar doesn't matter. That title's inconsequential, so you might as well pull it from him.
I'm with you, man. It's funny to me that the title he has this 1,000-day streak on is the title with no history.
Mm-hmm.
And the more important title historically is the one he's had about a year, right?
Yep.
So I think, and I don't have a problem with that, but it's like when I'm looking at Roman's significance right now, obviously he's on a legendary run. I mean, the guy is going to be in top 5 greatest all-time lists for the rest of wrestling fandom. But if you step outside of just Roman himself and you look at what his purpose is right now in this company, I truly think his purpose right now is adding relevancy to this Universal title. Like, that title could be something because it's the title that he started with this legendary reign.
Yep.
You know, like, so we are building history right now, but it's just funny to me that you have the other title that has the legit history. You could have easily taken that off of him in some form or fashion. And like you said, you could have done it in a way, strip him. You could have had a triple threat where he didn't get pinned and he lost it. Like, you could have done a host of things, but no, you go the route of bringing in a new title. And now that title doesn't have history unless they attach it to the big gold, which
they'll probably attach it to the Ruthless Aggression. Like I said, which starts with Triple H, ends with, I think, Randy Orton, and then whatever is in between that with title, Great Khali, Undertaker, Edge, all those guys.
Was that, correct me if I'm wrong, was that title, did that go away when Jericho won the
No, that was so Jericho won, and they created a new belt, which was the Undisputed Championship in 2002. So Triple H was the first person to have that belt that wound up being the WWE Championship throughout the Ruthless Aggression. That really nice title.
Okay.
And then that one championship was around. So once we had Lesnar over on SmackDown, they needed a world championship. So they created one. Triple H awarded it to himself on Raw.
Yeah.
And then Triple H and Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit, that whole thing, that world title wound up having a lot of lineage. But again, they liquidated it to have one title again. And then you pull it out again. The problem is you added the Universal title into this, which the main reign is on that title, because that title does not have the history, doesn't have the lineage, but they want to keep the WWE Championship. And no matter how they want to change history and make it look different, he won the Universal title back August 30th, 2020. It's not the WWE Championship. So,
and dude, look, I know I just railed a little bit ago about fans not, most casual fans not respecting lineages and histories. To see you do the mental gymnastics right now to explain to me how these titles, their reigns, where they ended, where they began, I understand why most fans are just like, it's too much. It's a world title. That's all I need to know. But
yeah,
I love the belt history. Like, it's just when you do things like this, when you unify titles and then bring titles back, it just muddies everything up, man. Just keep your title and keep it running.
Yep.
That's all, I don't know. Decisions like this, I'm not a fan of.
It dilutes everything around it. So when you have this crowning moment, again, you also only have one main event. And when you had the two titles forever, we have the two titles since 2002 that have been going on. You have opening the show, middle of the show, lesser than programs. At one point, the WWE Championship was lesser than the World Heavyweight Championship and vice versa. But the problem is at this point is they don't have the creative solution to get out of this story and make people happy. And I think they don't want to ruin what they've built with Roman Reigns, but the problem is other people suffer for this. So even you could throw a belt on whoever it is, but it's still a consolation prize. The best case scenario was utilize your mid-card titles that you built to the significance. Gunther has been champion for over a year. The IC title could have been the main title on Raw until next year. And the IC title has lineage, great guys, an all-time list of people that have held that title. And now you're starting fresh, whether it be the 2002 history until now with the gap in time for 10 years, no matter what, 3 world titles. Last time they did this was when ECW was a brand, and the ECW world title, does people consider when Vince McMahon was ECW champion, was that a world championship?
My thing,
there was
own your booking.
Shows. There was 3 shows.
Right. Own your booking. You made the decision to keep those titles on Roman Reigns. This goes back to me saying there's a level of fear in this booking. Own your booking. You made the decision to keep him holding both titles. But now it's like you're backpedaling on that decision, but your solution to that decision is just bring another title in. No, own it, man. Own it. If he is going to be holding both of those titles, have him hold both of your world titles. And like you said, Ace, elevate your mid-card titles, which you've been doing rather well.
100%. The IC title feels more important than ever right now. The perfect opportunity was, again, Gunther gets drafted to Raw, have him be the main guy, the big bad, and have him just ward off challengers. And the word Intercontinental title, you could tell an executive on USA, this is an Intercontinental Championship by definition across continents. So people are getting caught on the semantics of a world title, but I think in a lot of ways, and until further proven, the IC title is more important than this new title. So what are we doing?
It is. It totally is.
Anyway, let's get to the third story here. And again, of course, how do we not do, and we still haven't had Phil Brooks. He's not in the waiting room. So I guess we're going to get started without him.
Yeah.
Big Story 3.
All right. So we have a major debut expected with CM Punk. So this was in the newsletter this Friday that dropped with Dave Meltzer. So in addition to CM Punk, another major name is expected to be a part of AEW Collision, which we know the first episode is going to be Saturday, June 17th, Chicago's United Center. Dave Meltzer was talking about this on Wrestling Observer Radio, but also posted it in the newsletter. And he said the show believed to be called AEW Collision, as noted, is expected to debut on 6/17 with a show from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern from the United Center in Chicago, which would also be the return of CM Punk, along with what is expected to be either another major name debut or a return. So as first reported by WrestleZone and confirmed by Meltzer, the show is slated to air on TNT, and it seems like Rampage is continuing, but the real conversation starter here is major name debut or major name return. Racking my brain, we talk about people coming over and working all these different companies. For the life of me, I really can't figure out who it is aside from the person that's missing from TV, which is Miro, but I don't know if you build a show around Miro. So Chad, I throw in your court. Who do you think this could be?
Man, I mean, Miro seems like it's not big enough to do something like this. Now, I do think Miro is probably, there's a lot of big shows coming up, from Double or Nothing to the launch of this new CM Punk Collision show to Forbidden Door to the Wembley show to All Out. I mean, it's a packed summer for AEW. So I do think Miro is on the horizon. Do I think that's the big pull for launching your new 2-hour Saturday show? Because let's be honest, though, every news bit we're getting about this AEW Collision, Saturday, 8 to 10 p.m., another 2-hour flagship type of show. This doesn't feel like a Rampage. Rampage feels a little bit like a Dynamite afterthought. This feels like they're really going to try and build this as a the SmackDown for AEW, you know, like Raw and SmackDown, Dynamite and Collision. That's how it feels. So is Miro big enough to launch your new big show? Obviously, we got Punk coming in on the on the United Center date. I'm trying to think of who it could be as far as like, if we go outside the realm of just an AEW roster return, if we're going in the realm of a mystery debut of someone new, names like Kota Ibushi pop in my mind,
right?
But I don't think Kota's even big enough for the casual American fans. Now, us hardcores, we're going to wig out. I honestly think Kota is probably going to be before this show. I see him somehow getting involved in this elite angle with the BCC. So it's like, who else is out there? We've got Ibushi. I mean, is there any WWE names that could even pop up?
Drew McIntyre was rumored, but obviously they would have to be a lapse in time. We saw Roderick Strong come back, but that was done quietly, so it could potentially be a Drew. I'm also thinking of a guy like Matt Cardona. But again, I don't know. I would assume it would be a return for a debut, because you go with the debut of a guy like Jay White. Jay White was probably the biggest star out there, but he already showed his hand on Dynamite. He's part of the storyline of the Bullet Club.
Could it be Mercedes?
Could be Mercedes. Mercedes would be a big enough name for that, I think.
Mercedes would be big to have her saddle up on that show. And, that's June 17th. So I'm wanting to say that's what, a week or two prior to Forbidden Door.
Yep.
So maybe she pops in there and there's that joint New Japan AEW. She's working both companies. Maybe, who knows?
I think Mercedes probably is the, if you're going with the betting favorite, I would say probably Mercedes would be a betting favorite, because they got to build up. I think money match. You had said it as well. Jade Cargill versus Mercedes for Forbidden Door for the TBS championship, and whether Mercedes loses or whatever, that remains to be seen. But I think having that name on Collision would be huge. You mentioned Kota. I think Kota has to be on the Dynamite side. If we're doing split, he has to be with the Elite. That story with Kenny just writes itself.
Good call.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, again, this is just Meltzer's opinion, what he's heard through the grapevine and talking about it. And people are going to say he's wrong or right. Doesn't matter, because he's reporting what he heard. So we're all just having conversation and conjecture and what it could be. But the fact that we're even talking about this main show, AEW Collision, being another 2-hour time slot while keeping Rampage, and not to mention too, we'll talk about in the quick hitters, they have a lot of other shows on the horizon. I mean, All Out is still happening while All In is, and they're only like a week apart. 2 huge shows, flagship level shows that you're going to put a lot of stake in. There's a lot to be said. I mean, I'm also thinking a guy like Pac. Pac is out there, and he needs to be involved in the absolutely All In show, being from the UK. He has that. But again, is he a guy that's a big enough star to put on a poster and say, check this out? I mean, the other thing, and unfortunately this has been in the news, but a guy like Goldberg was written out there, and I don't want it. I'm like, Goldberg could potentially be in the cards for a show like that, because that does drive the casual audience. A TNT, that's where Nitro was. I don't know.
Oh man, don't put that shit out in the universe, dude.
I'm so sorry.
Here's the thing though, like, I don't want to see that, but it makes sense. If you're launching a show and you throw a guy on there, even if it's not, I mean, it's not like you're going to get a 3-year deal out of Goldberg. He's talked about a 4-date retirement run. Like, if he were to pop up on Collision just simply to build Goldberg versus Wardlow, I mean, I don't want to see that, but I could see someone like Tony Khan being like, that's marquee.
Yeah.
There's the kind of the serendipitous Wardlow's the new Goldberg, the Wardlow chant, very reminiscent of Goldberg's chant. A passing of the torch type of situation. Does Goldberg want to come back and lose to a guy? How does he see his retirement going? Like, I don't know, man. I think Mercedes is up there. I think good call on Coda being with Dynamite, because he's going to want to be with his friends if this is a quote unquote soft brand split.
Yep.
Man, it's tough, dude. I don't think Pac isn't a big enough, like, oh my God, he's back, because he hasn't been gone that long. I mean, he just had the best of 7 series with the Elite. Like, I do think he has to be on the Wembley show. You got to give that guy some love in the UK. I think a major debut, a major return, I think you got to have that. Miro makes sense, but I think Miro is in addition to Punk and someone else.
Right.
That to really make, if you're really wanting to differentiate this show from a Rampage and make people say, holy shit, this is destination TV, I have to watch it. Punk, it's out there. We know this is Punk's show, supposedly, from the news. So we're tuning in for Punk at United Center. Holy shit, Miro's back. That's cool. But you got to have that shocking surprise. And I'm just wondering, like, the only shocking surprise I know of that you could do is Mercedes, unless there is some contract that we aren't aware of, aren't privy to, like a Roderick Strong. I mean, Drew McIntyre would be massive, but I had read that his contract was tied up until the end of the year, so I don't know.
Yeah, we read the same thing about Roderick when he requested his release last year, and here it is right now on the show. All right, I'm going to
throw one out for you. Right, I have one. It hit me.
Okay.
Go with me here.
All right.
Edge.
Okay.
Edge. There is scuttlebutt. He released a statement and he said he still has about a year or two of elite wrestling he could still do. His contract, I have read, is up. Like, coming, like, it's very, very soon to be up. There have been rumors of him and Christian wanting to do one last tag run. Cool. And I remember a tweet being retweeted by Dax Harwood, who lives in Asheville, North Carolina, with Edge. They helped Edge get ready for his return to the Rumble. They have coffee dates together. They're very good friends. And there was a retweet where someone had said FTR versus Edge and Christian would be a dream match. Unfortunately, that'll never happen. And Dax retweeted it and said, I would agree with you, but the possibility of that happening is maybe a little better than you think.
Wow.
This was prior to him re-signing with Cash. So people were kind of throwing that in with maybe FTR leaves and Christian goes back to WWE and we get that in WWE. What if we get that in AEW? What if Edge goes to be with his buddy Christian and we get Edge with a 1 or 2 year run in AEW.
I would 100% sign off on that. I love that idea. I think it'd be great. I mean, and I think the nostalgia run with Christian would be great. I mean, you have the Young Bucks versus Edge and Christian. I mean, obviously be on Collision, but we could figure things out. But having him on that show, he is a huge star. But I'm going to circle back to Goldberg for 1 second. I'm going to be positive, because to me, also in the American wrestling landscape, I don't think anyone's done a better job of presenting their legends in a positive light than a guy like Tony Khan, not 100%. At the expense of their roster. So if anyone was going to bring in Goldberg, and I, again, do not want it to be to AEW, but I'm open to the possibility only because of how Sting's been presented, because it won't be at expense of the main roster. We won't see him squashing MJF. We won't see him beating up young talent. They would do a good job of presenting him. And you mentioned helping guys along the way. Think about how essential Sting has been in developing Darby Allin to who he is now, to the point where he's going to be main eventing Double or Nothing. And maybe he could have gotten there at the same time, right? But would people have the same stock if Darby wasn't paired with Sting? And I think Goldberg, if he wants a retirement run, he doesn't have a home because WCW is no longer existing. And he spent a mercenary level of time in WWE. He doesn't have the same lineage there. But with TNT, WCW Atlanta, Goldberg's been an essential part of the Monday Night Wars on the WCW side. And Tony Khan is a Nitro kid. He loves WCW and he's spoken to it. I would say if anyone could do it right, it'd be Tony Khan. And I still would be skeptical. There'd be a lot of hate for it, but I think people would be open to the possibility, because you can have a Goldberg style party match like you have the Sting party matches. And if Goldberg's open to playing ball and being this guy who can help the future generation, maybe he just hasn't had the opportunity yet because he's been booked like a monster because they're paying him a shitload of money. We want you to be the guy having marquee matches against a guy like Bray Wyatt, winning the title and then beating up Kevin Owens. Maybe he has the opportunity to give back, and this is his chance to be remembered in a positive light, because at this point, he's being remembered as the guy who dropped Taker on his head, who ended Bret Hart's career, and not fondly. So maybe this is his chance to get in with the diehard fans and have one last hurrah on a farewell tour with AEW.
Fuck it. Let's do Wardlow versus Goldberg with Bret Hart as a special guest referee.
Yeah. I mean, the long work, Bret Hart and Goldberg.
I mean, I can't disagree with what you're saying, man. Look at the way they handled Sting. I think the way they've handled Matt Hardy has been rather well. People forget that Matt Hardy early on was a big reason for Sammy Guevara getting over. Like that little feud they had, although there was several little missteps with, Sammy busting Matt Hardy open with the chair on Dynamite, and then that fucking horrible fall off of the lift at All Out. Like that was a good feud. They did the Broken Universe style cinematic match at the Hardy compound. So they've handled legends rather well, especially Sting and even Jeff Jarrett to some degree. I think Jeff Jarrett came in and put on good matches and not taken away from young talent. He is elevating young guys.
Agreed.
So yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It would get a lot of flack, but sign me up for, if it's handled properly, Goldberg, Wardlow, and like you said, in some party type matches where it's just there for the straight nostalgia of it and putting over a young guy, it could benefit the company.
Do you think his name on a poster with a picture with CM Punk is big enough to get people to tune in 8 to 10? Do you think that's the guy? Like, out of all the guys we're talking about, do you think Mercedes has a better chance of drawing in casual fans or a guy like Goldberg? It's hard to say. We're so in the bubble.
Man. I think from a hardcore perspective, people would be tuning in for Mercedes more. From a just casual, old school wrestling fan, it's like me and Sneed talk with Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett's the guy that is getting those old fans that haven't watched in a while. They're flipping through. They see, holy shit, that's Jeff Jarrett. And they stop and watch. They're not stopping and watching for Mercedes. They don't know who that is.
But also, take the Jeff Jarrett effect and times it by 300, because Goldberg's 10 times the star Jeff Jarrett ever was in this
Very
business.
true.
He was the 1B to Stone Cold at 1.98. So, man,
let's go all in, dude. Imagine an ad. Let's go totally all in. You're flipping through your internet news sites. You see a poster. It has CM Punk, Bill Goldberg, Mercedes, and Edge. Are you watching that show?
as a casual fan, I'd have to see. I would say rank those guys in order for casual fans. I think it goes Goldberg, Edge, Mercedes, because I think we've seen the impact that Mercedes has had and hasn't been as big as people thought it would be. The diehards love her, and I think she's had. But if you compare her getting over to New Japan with Chris Jericho, who had a huge effect on their business, I think a guy like Goldberg could have more of an impact in the immediate, maybe not long term, but in the immediate for a show that you want to get off the ground and make it not feel like Rampage Light, which.
I want to disagree with you so bad, but I think you're right. Like, I will say, I think if Edge were to be on that show, I think the fact that Edge has already returned to WWE takes a little bit off of it.
Yes.
Like if
we've seen him, he's been back.
You've seen him. We know he's back. We're used to him being here. But if you tie him with Christian and it's like the return of Edge and Christian, that's a different type of situation. Like if fans are fantasy booking, seeing Edge Christian against the Hardys one last time, and you throw FTR in there and we do a fucking TLC match, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And I'm not going on Pro Wrestling Tees and buying a Goldberg shirt anytime soon, but I think there is, if you want to bring in a casual audience, and I always said, fuck the casual fan. I love the hardcore fans, but if you are trying your best to appease casual fans and bridge the gap and make yourself on the same level playing field as WWE and say, what would Vince do in a business sense? It's kind of a no brainer if he's out there and he's asking for a reasonable amount of money. Especially with the lineage of AEW is, and I heard a stand-up comedian, it's like, I liked AEW better when it was WCW, but like this is the offspring of WCW, and you're giving a chance for a guy, like, again, if perfect world, if Bill Goldberg has a good perspective, good head on her shoulders, she's going in and for the right reasons to better AEW. I mean, it could be something done really well, like if Tony Khan has the buy-in from Goldberg, and who's to say he didn't have the opportunity to do this and help younger talent in WWE? I don't know. It could be something special, but I think it's a possibility. I really do. He's been popping up in the news a lot. Tony Khan referenced him. He's like, we'll never see him in Ring of Honor, but didn't say we'll never see him in AEW. So
I'm kind of with you, man. And there is a part of me that's like, hey, he is a pelt on Roman Reigns' current run as champion.
Mm-hmm. Who's
to say having Goldberg as a pelt on Wardlow's run isn't a feather in that guy's cap?
Yeah.
Like it would, if this all comes to a head to service the future generation of pro wrestling, and it's not just this victory lap for Goldberg saying, like if this all comes at the expense of helping get young talent over, I'm for it if it's done correctly. I think us booking this right now with Edge and Christian coming back and Goldberg and Wardlow working out perfectly, like that's the downside of being a hardcore fan, is we build this shit up in our heads so high that it's probably going to be Miro.
Right.
It won't add up to what we book ourselves, but hopefully it does.
With that being said, let's get into a little bit with AEW's new show with our quick hitters.
Let's do it.
Quick hitters.
All right, so we mostly talked about this during the mystery debut for Collision, but the company recently applied a trademark to the name AEW Collision back on February 20th. So we talked about the schedule Saturday nights, 8 to 10 p.m., starting June 17th. Right now, there's no tapings announced, but currently AEW has one Saturday evening television taping announced, a July 8th event in Regina, Saskatchewan, from Canada during that tour as they're doing the Owen Hart tournament. We have other Saturday events under the House Rules live event banner, but the Regina show is clearly advertised as a live TV event. So we have no formal announcement. This is all conjecture and rumors, but it seems like we're building towards possibly going to get Tony Khan on TV soon saying, tune in Saturdays, 8 to 10 p.m., flagship show. Wonder how they handled the CM Punk thing. Are they going to do the not saying it out loud, expecting to sell out this United Center show without announcing him? Or are they going to go with the just announcing him straight up on Dynamite? Curious how they go with it.
I hope they announce him straight up, because if you're launching a show, I feel like why not? He's already a part of the roster. We know he's coming back at some point. Unless you're doing some surprise run-in with an elite angle, I say announce it. Like that's the only surprise we need is if he's going to work with Omega and the Bucks, but I don't think that's going to happen. I hope and pray to God this new show's live. I hope and pray to God it's live. If you want us to take it seriously, it has to be live. You can't do a tape show.
Well, the Saturday, July 8th says live TV event. And again, that's subject to change. Ticketmaster has it there. So it could potentially be live, or I agree. Live has to happen. I've been talking about an Honor Society, how much it's damaged having these tapings. Spoilers be damned. There's something about when Nitro went live against Raw. That's why they were able to get so much behind them, because taped and live are two different animals. And to me, it's not precedent watching if it's taped. I'll just read the results.
Agree.
So speaking about WWE, want to bounce back to them for a second. We know where WrestleMania 40 is going to be. It's going to be in Philly, but WrestleMania 41, similar to the Super Bowl, there's city bids for this. And CBS Minneapolis, Patrick Kessler, he's a special contributor, posted a tweet on Thursday saying the sources have told him that Minneapolis is one of the finalists for WrestleMania 41, which will be taking place 2025. So if Minneapolis is chosen, it'll be the first time the state of Minnesota has ever hosted a WrestleMania. And the event would presumably take place at the U.S. Bank Stadium, which is the brand new stadium as of 2 years ago, home of the Minnesota Vikings. Beautiful stadium. And we all know, as we mentioned, that locations for future WrestleManias are in doubt. Sometimes they announce it far in advance, but some other places that we talked about could be Nashville, Tennessee. But Nashville wants it for WrestleMania 43 in 2027, as long as the new enclosed stadium is built in time. But it's kind of cool to see WrestleMania get to the point where it's sought after, because it's a tourist attraction. It becomes this WrestleMania hub, and it's really cool to see that big stadiums and big cities want WrestleMania, because it just shows. We talk about WrestleMania 14 that took place at the Fleet Center in Boston, where they sold it out. It was a hot product, but to see how it's grown in 20 years, it's been wild.
Yeah, and you're talking cities obviously want this, because you're talking about an absolute influx of cash coming into that city. Like from hotels and restaurants and all of the peripheral cost that fans pay when you're in your city. I imagine it's in the millions and millions of dollars that a city sees from hosting an event like that.
Going back to CM Punk for a second, we talked about that eventual meeting with all the impartial parties, but mostly getting Chris Jericho and CM Punk in a room. So we had PW Torch's Wade Keller reporting with Dave Meltzer confirming it. He said details are light as of now, but they said that the meeting happened and took place in Florida, and the meeting was said to have gone well. So Fightful reported Wednesday as well that the meeting was relatively uneventful, all things considered, and especially when taking in consideration the issues the two had. We can go through the issues where Punk was calling Jericho a stooge, but it seems like at this point, everyone that was scheduled for this meeting got in the room, and it was uneventful. Kudos to both parties. Kudos for them to get in the room and just doing it quietly, because the fact that it happened and it didn't become news story number one for us and wasn't this like drama filled thing. Chris Jericho walked out, Punk punched him in the face, whatever. It's just two guys getting in the ring or getting in the room together and then eventually getting in the ring. Program. Good start. Right? We're checking one box out of like 5 for Punk to get back on time in June.
Yeah, I think, I think Jericho has quietly became Tony's right-hand man. And I think for this all to work out, I think Jericho and Punk had to settle their beef. And the reports I read also said that Jericho is acting as a pseudo middleman to the locker room. This meeting was to address not only the issues between Jericho and Punk themselves, but also the issues of the locker room, and that Jericho is then acting as kind of going back to the locker room and prepping them for this situation. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Staying with CM Punk, we saw him obviously on Raw last week, not on Raw, but in pictures, meeting up with some talent, talking with Triple H. That caught fire, but it seems like he's making his rounds to different promotions. He was at Impact's Spring Slugfest that took place in Chicago Saturday night. We know this because he took pictures with Jordan Grace, who she posted it. Ricky Morton took a picture with him, and Fightful did confirm it. He apparently was welcomed with open arms, brought through by security, and even by numerous fans. We saw the pictures of him, pretty high-res photos of him, so he wasn't hiding from the press. But Punk's backstage appearances with these other promotions is tied with AEW reporting to debut this new 2-hour Saturday show. Seems like he's putting pressure on them a little bit to say like, all right, well, I'm out there in the news, so you guys need to make right. And eventually I think this is going to be all to do about nothing. We're not going to be talking about what happened behind the scenes. And that to me is the best part about this, is we're going to be talking about what's happening in the ring.
Yeah. And I know Tommy Dreamer, thoughts and prayers go out to him. He just lost his mother, so I don't know. I imagine he probably wasn't at these tapings, but I know CM Punk and Tommy Dreamer are really tight. They text pretty regularly from what Tommy Dreamer says on Busted Open Radio. And I knew that Punk wouldn't be escorted out of the building like WWE when he went there last week for Raw. It looks like Impact welcomed him there. And I think a little bit of this is just him getting himself back in the good graces of pro wrestling and pro wrestling fans. And I think there's just a little shred of trolling.
Yeah.
The fact that he was at Raw because they were in Chicago, and then he saw the firestorm of press that got, and he's like, oh, Impact's here, let me go there too. I think there's a little bit of that.
So we had some updates with WWE Raw and Vince being back in charge, and that's been sort of quiet as of right now because he hasn't been physically present at these shows. But we know with technology in 2023 that anyone can be accessible with Zoom or whatever, FaceTime. He's having his hands and fingerprints all over the shows, and there's been numerous rewrites and significant to the talent, and he's working remotely, but he's still making a lot of an indent on the show. And as previously reported, the number of segments involved in the women's division were cut from last Monday's show. Fightful learned the card was originally meant to feature Piper Niven versus Candice LeRae, as well as a backstage moment between the two with the newly turned heel Trish Stratus. The segments were listed on the rundown sheets, but then as they had the show at 8, came on the air, they cut them. So Fightful had said several of the female talent had been absolutely angry, vocal, and just saying that their division's being cut out the knees because they're not getting the showcase that they were getting under Paul Levesque being main creative. There's other segments we talked about here, but this is a sign Vince is fully back in charge, because with the rewrites and not knowing what the card is, and we're going to get to the week ahead, there's not much to talk about what's being advertised for Raw. And that just speaks volumes, because we were getting 4 or 5 matches that were advertised and happening, and that's just not happening anymore.
Yeah. And there also Conan on his Keeping It 100 podcast, Conan just inducted Rey Mysterio, his good longtime friend, into the Hall of Fame at Mania weekend. Conan recently said on his podcast, let me tell you this for a fact. Vince could have been doing it over video conference or over the phone. I know for sure he hasn't been backstage at every show, but there have been some changes by him. I know that for a fact. And that's coming from Conan, who, if you know his, just kind of his MO and what type of guy he is, he's kind of a no bullshit guy. For him to say for a fact he knows there's changes happening, I kind of take that as gospel if it's coming from Conan.
I agree with that. And Conan, if you guys listen to Shot of Nostalgia, he's been so influential throughout WCW 1996 and bringing over international talent. He's responsible for a guy like Psychosis, Hoovy, Rey Mysterio, those guys getting the light of ECW. So Conan, I mean, whether you like his podcast or not, that's a different story, but his influence on wrestling and his in-ring work, amazing run. So respect his opinion. But let's get to one of the flagship level programs that cemented AEW in its essential beginning of its promotion. Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley. This will be their 4th ever singles match, but they announced that the 4th one will be a cage match May 10th on AEW Dynamite, which, believe it or not, is in 2 weeks. So they announced it in advance, but this was done with a Blackpool Combat Club promo posted on social media on Friday. Danielson explained that he attacked Takeshita at the end of last Wednesday's Dynamite. He said that Takeshita's blood tasted like amateur blood and a lot like Omega accepting the challenge that was later made on Friday's Rampage. So we know that their lights out match at Full Gear in November 2019 was their first encounter. Moxley, I saw you posted the build up to it. Same time I posted the match highlights because of this announcement. Moxley got the win there. Then Omega got the win back at AEW Winter is Coming back in December 2021, where he got the win at the start of that awesome run. And the two have been on opposite sides of several tag team matches as well, but this is a huge match announced in advance, and the exact opposite of what's happening on the other side in Stanford. We're getting the build-up and anticipation for two guys that they're involved in a blood feud. This easily could be at Double or Nothing, but this is on like another step in the direction of getting to whatever they're building towards with BCC and the Elite.
I love this. I love that they're giving it to us on a Dynamite, which leads me to believe that this is pushing towards probably a big blood and guts type of match at Double or Nothing. It's going to be something big if you're giving us a cage match on the way to the pay-per-view. These two guys, like we talked about, AEW is creating their history right now. And, a decade from now, when you look back on this company, one of the more intriguing feuds, and it's hats off to Omega. People can say whatever they want. Omega's tied into two major storylines for All Elite Wrestling. You've got his relationship and situation with Hangman, and then you've got this feud with Moxley, which Moxley came into this company dumping Omega on his head at Double or Nothing in 2019. Yep. So this, from the very first event they had, these two have had issues, and I love Omega Mox. Mox got screwed out of that title by Don Callis cracking him at Winter is Coming, which kicked off this amazing heel Omega run that we got. I'm here for it, man. This is going to be a great match.
So on the WWE side of things, we had the draft starting on SmackDown, and we saw multiple champions from NXT get called up to the main roster, most notably the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. They were drafted to SmackDown on Friday night. And we also got NXT Women's Champion Indy Hartwell drafted to Raw. As of Friday, we're the only wrestlers from NXT selected on night one, but we also had Zoe Stark, JD McDonough, and Wagner being called up to the main roster for the first time, while Cruz is now back on the main roster following a stint in NXT, Cruz being Apollo Cruz. We got some other auxiliary type of announcements of guys not on TV, Omos with MVP going to SmackDown, Dolph Ziggler going to SmackDown. You guys can get the list elsewhere. I'm not going to sit here and list who went where. I just thought the craziest part, number one pick going to SmackDown, you are able to get Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman. How is that possible that they're all packaged like that? The appeal of the draft was splitting people up. And I'm not saying the right decision was to split Sikoa and the Bloodline up. That's not the right decision. I'm not saying that. But at least kind of appease us a little bit, make it seem like it's real, where just have SmackDown be able to get their hands on everybody through the draft. I understand Heyman going with them, but Solo, one of the highest ranking rising prospects in all of wrestling in WWE land, he just gets packaged with Roman Reigns. How's that fair?
Yeah, it was lame. This draft, they're always lame. They never pull the trigger. Like a lot of these picks were guys going to brands that they were already a part of.
Yeah.
Like they didn't shake it up hardly at all. I think Bianca went from Raw to SmackDown, I believe, but a lot of it just seemed like the same stuff. Like we didn't see any major names from NXT. I don't believe we didn't see Braun Breaker, right?
No Carmelo Hayes. No, nothing like that.
So, I mean, it is what it is. We'll see how long this will last. It's just more of the same with this draft. I've never been a fan of the draft. They make a big deal of it and nothing really ever comes from it. So
yeah, not huge on it, but I'm interested to see what they do with Fire on the main roster. I mean,
I love Fire. She's great.
Formerly of NXT UK. And then also with Indy Hartwell, it was interesting because they had Tuesday's event, NXT Spring Breaking. She suffered a legitimate ankle injury, and they could have put the writing on the wall that maybe she'd be drafted by having her lose the title. But they did similar to when Owens got put up to the main roster where he was the NXT champion. So maybe they'll figure out a different way to have her on both shows. And but Indy Hartwell, she's ready for the women's division. I hope they use her the right way. And maybe they're trying to jam pack the women's division and have the tag champs for NXT be a part of this tag division that is clearly struggling, never really got off the ground. But yeah, we'll see. And again, Zoe Stark, JD McDonough, those are big pieces as well.
Zoe, I love Zoe Stark.
Same here.
I think Zoe Stark's incredible.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome to see them back on the main roster or on the main roster first time. And even Apollo Crews, who, interestingly enough, we didn't talk about and I didn't put it in the notes here about the lawsuit because it seems like it's old news, and you guys can check out the Raw Down crew talking about it with this lawsuit about these racist and offensive storylines that are being pitched. Apollo Crews was one of the guys that was listed as being put with the Nigerian accent and being kind of typecast in a certain role because of where he's from and who he is. But yeah, he's being tossed to the main roster. Maybe that's done because they want to make right by him.
Yeah, and that news with the racist storylines being pitched in the back and everyone coming out and being, oh, this is shocking. Really?
It's always been the case.
Have you watched this product? Like, they've always done this shit. And a lot of it, they've put it on their TV screens. You know, it did not shock me at all because some of the things that have made it through to broadcast are more shocking than the shit that was being pitched in that was leaked in this thing. And here's the thing, guys, like, is it wrong? Yeah, maybe it is. But is anything going to come from this? Is anything going to like hurt this company because of that? No, it's going to be paid out of court because when people come after WWE, they're not really doing it for the right reasons. Because if they were doing it for the right reasons, they would dig their heels in the sand and they would demand trial and they would push it. But what happens is they always get paid out of court. It's always a money grab and nothing ever comes from it. Look at all the things against Vince. Like, if people really wanted to hold the feet to the fire and make them accountable for some of the things they're doing, money wouldn't shut them up. But WWE has enough money to throw it at these people and shut them up, and the train keeps a rolling. So I always look at this stuff as like, yeah, nothing's going to happen.
100% agree. And I'll let you lead us through the next story because you put it in the news, and I think this is a really good get for AEW with one of the hottest indie stars.
Ashley Diambois, I think.
Yes,
I believe she's from Louisiana. I believe that's where the surname comes, but she signs with AEW. Longtime viewers of AEW Dark and Dark Elevation are very familiar with her. She's been killing it. She's a 3-year pro, constant presence on AEW's YouTube shows. She's had over like 20 appearances. She has that star quality. Like, when you would see her in matches, you're like, man, she has the look. She's solid in the ring. She's making her rounds on a ton of independents, and they picked her. Fightful reports they signed her to a deal, and it's unclear at this time if she's under a full-time contract or if she's working under one of AEW's tier deals. But I'm excited, man. I like her. I think she could be a fun addition. I just like when companies get behind young talent and we get to see them progress instead of just scooping up people that make their names in other places. Like Kylan King, I was so happy to see her sign with Impact, but she was kind of being built in AEW for a while, and I thought AEW was going to give her that contract, and they didn't. So it was nice to see her working with NWA and Impact. But I think Ashley Diambois is going to be awesome, man. I love her look, and she's super talented.
So we mentioned this person earlier in the show, but Roderick Strong has officially signed with AEW. He made his surprise debut on Wednesday's Dynamite in saving Adam Cole. Came out to the classic Kill Switch Engage theme song. Roderick Strong, we know, was under contract with WWE. He hasn't wrestled since August. I mean, he lost Apollo Crews on an episode of NXT, which was the last time he wrestled, believe it or not, according to Cage Match. But we know he's been associated with the Creed brothers. He was involved with the storyline with Damon Kemp. He was written off TV after he was attacked backstage, and eventually last October, he was selling the effects from Kemp's attack. So he's been sort of on the back burner. He, as we referenced before, requested a release last year. He was unhappy with WWE and their booking and their creative several times, and those requests were denied. This is part of the big stories. I heard you guys on the flagship saying, you weren't huge on the debut or didn't pop you the same way it popped a lot of people. I think he would be amazing. Put him in ROH and strap the rocket to him. And I also like the tie with Adam Cole, and I want them to move away from the Undisputed Era stuff on the TV. I think that's been damaging to Adam Cole. But having this loose connection with Adam Cole and having Roderick Strong being that badass to wrestle Samoa Joe and wrestle Claudio on ROH, sign me up for that. ROH needs someone like Roderick Strong with the legacy.
That's me. I was never huge on Roderick. I think he's great in the ring. I mean, he's phenomenal. I think he lacks a little in charisma, and that's not a new critique. That's a critique a lot of people give the guy. I'm with you. I want to see him in ROH. Put him to the top of the card. Make him wrestle those top guys. He's got the lineage there. I I don't want Adam Cole to be encircled with a returning Kyle O'Reilly, with a debuting Roderick Strong. Like, let's get away from that. I think it's fun that Tony Khan doesn't have a problem acknowledging history and past in other promotions, but don't lean heavy in that. Let Adam Cole make his own bones here in AEW. And I don't have a problem with it being a loose connection in the beginning, but let's kind of divert those past. This is something that I kind of saw coming because Roderick Strong's wife, the mother of his child, Marina Shafir, she works for AEW. So it was only a matter of time.
So we have the biggest show in AEW history coming up at Wembley Stadium, All In. This is going to be in August. We saw initial photos. I posted one on my Instagram showing Wembley Stadium was going to be just offering half the stadium, setting the bar. But now it appears with Ticketmaster and other websites selling the tickets, it appears the entire arena has been opened for the wrestling fans to purchase. Man, this is literally by all name purposes. They are going all in, and they're basing this on numbers. And I heard you guys talking to Hawk about Tony Khan having the analytics and the understanding about things going on behind the scenes of gauging the interest of the United Kingdom fans and all across Europe of who's going to travel for the show. With no sections blacked out, they're shooting for the moon here. And I know that they're basing this on preliminary signups and people that were interested, and that doesn't always translate to ticket sales. If they can do, I think the number of 50 to 60,000 would be huge. It would double to triple what they've done in the past at AEW Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe as far as their largest attendance. If they do over 41, that's bigger than any WCW show in the history of their promotion. But goddamn, if they're able to actually sell this goddamn thing out, we're changing our perspective. This is a moment in the sun for them if they could do this. And there's the fact that they're offering the tickets now means that they think there's a potential to sell all of the tickets because they wouldn't do it. They didn't want to embarrass themselves. So I'm excited.
I'm excited too, man. I'm still kind of like wondering if there's even a possibility they could sell it out, but the fact that they've opened up all the seats, we're just a couple marks on a fucking wrestling podcast. Tony is a numbers guy. Like, they're not going, like you said, he's not going to put egg on his face and have this open arena with half of it sold. Like, he sees something, but as of I believe the report came out yesterday that as of right now, 60,000 pre-sale codes have gone out.
Right.
There's no word on how that'll translate, but it goes on sale May 5th. But you got to look at, I don't know what Clash of the Castle did in a final number, but Clash at the Castle had a similar pre-sale system and they had 89,000 codes sent out. And I'm wanting to say Clash did 50 to 60 some thousand at the end.
62,296 that they announced.
So 62,000 fans for Clash at the Castle in Cardiff with 89,000 codes sent out, 60,000 codes sent out right now. I just have this funny feeling though that AEW is going to hit some big numbers because this isn't like WWE coming. WWE comes to the UK all the time. I think AEW has the benefit of this being their first show in the UK. I think there's going to be a lot of people wanting to be at this historical first event, first big wrestling show at Wembley since 92 SummerSlam. So
yep.
I think, man, this is exciting. I just want to see a stadium level wrestling show done by a company not WWE. I want to see what a stadium environment feels like that's not WrestleMania. You know, like we don't know how they're going to handle this. This is a big moment for Tony Khan.
So the number for SummerSlam 92, which is disputed and people think is exaggerated, which WWF and WWE do, was 80,355, which people believe is far lower, that it was close to 71 as what the accurate number is as far as turnstiles go. And whatever you believe, I think setting the bar as the number that was exaggerated, that should be what it is. Get 81,000 people in that goddamn building. And if you think you can do that, you could really shove it in WWE's face because they haven't been back to Wembley to do it.
I know.
And whether it beats WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, 101,000 exaggerated as they said, but it doesn't matter. Like if you beat it's apples and apples when it's Wembley. It's not the same grounds, but it is the same place that both of them only had one opportunity to run. And if they can beat that 81,000 number, which is their own exaggerated number, that is absolutely what Tony Khan has to have circled as far as, man.
I just want to see the nerd side of me. I want to see the stage. I want to see what that ramp looks like going down to the ring. Like, how are they laying this thing out? UK fans are rabid fans. They bring a level of energy to shows that rivals any crowd in the world. Man, you pack 70, 80,000 UK fans for the first ever AEW show and you put a banger card together. That is going to be a moment, man.
Yep. Yeah, and this is sort of, everyone wants to say AEW is not competition, but WWE is watching this with bated breath because, again, they haven't run Wembley because of the fact that it is such a daunting task. And
right.
They have done that for the Cardiff show. Instead of running Cardiff, they would have run London instead. Maybe they could have done that and done a better number. I mean, Cardiff was 62 and change, but man, this is a chance for them to be looked at as far as just presentation wise and optics on the same level, same playing field. And nobody does the big event like WWE, but Tony Khan's going to try his damnedest to be on the same level, and we'll see what he can do.
It's exciting.
At the very least, I respect the moxie on this.
Yeah, dude. This is like it is the perfect name for this event. This is pushing all your chips. We're going all in, baby. We're going to push them all on the table and we're going to roll the dice and we're going to gamble it. And this is a gambler, man. I love the moxie of Tony Khan just being like, you know what? You think we're 5 years away from a stadium show? Let's roll the dice and see what we can do. And he's got ties to the UK.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's entrenched over there. So I'm so excited for this show. I think I'm more excited for Wembley than any show they have this calendar year.
Yeah. I mean, they could have just went the layup and did Craven Cottage and sold out whatever it be, 22,000 people, and just been like, we beat our attendance record. But no, they're going to go all in, like literally, and just try to top it 3 times over. So I'm excited. But speaking of Tony Khan, we have more details about the Owen Hart Cup tournament, the second annual. On Wednesday's Dynamite, I was kind of happy they didn't announce it as this major announcement. Tony Khan was talking about the opening ceremonies of the Owen Hart Cup tournament beginning in May at Double or Nothing. So the tournament itself, we're going to get a layout of being handled in Canada. Matches will be held at AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door event on June 25th. And the finals will be in Calgary, July 15th, which is currently labeled as a house rule show at the Saddle Dome. Interesting how they play that. I mean, Calgary being the hometown of the Hart family, very appropriate to be there. As we know, the first Owen Hart Cup tournament, one for men, one for women, took place last year. We got Dr. Martha Hart doing the whole thing with the hat. We had Adam Cole defeating Samoa Joe, Britt Baker defeating Ruby Soho in the finals. Not really a well-received tournament. They're going to try their hand again. I think being held in Canada, having a little bit more prestige behind it, and giving it won't be tied in with all the other tournaments that were going on. That's the other thing. We haven't seen a tournament.
It was tournament heavy during that time. And I think that was a bad stigma. And dude, look, think of all the King of the Ring tournaments. Was every one of those bangers? No, they just started out. Like, I like that Owen Hart has a tie in pro wrestling, even if it's just by name association to this tournament. And the interesting thing here, Ace, July 15th, Saddle Dome. I know it's listed as a house rule show. That's a Saturday. What better way I think some of these Saturday house rule shows could be getting converted into AEW Collision shows. What better way for your new show, A Feather in Your Cap, to have the finals of Owen Hart tournament, the Owen Hart Cup in Calgary? That's a good thing to tune in for a new show. Like, it's not, I can't remember, where were the finals at last year?
I forget. I mean, they took place.
Was it Double or Nothing?
I think it was Double or Nothing. I could picture what Adam Cole was wearing, were the pink tights.
Yeah.
I think it was Double or Nothing.
I think it was. Yeah. But to do this in Calgary, that makes this year's version of the Owen Hart Cup mean a little more to me, that we're in his hometown. So
absolutely. So we also had some more AEW in the news. Sean Ross Sapp. No one else has confirmed this, but it's worth noting because it's a complaint we have on a weekly basis about hot acts disappearing from the television program. And apparently people in the back are aware of this being an issue and they're working to fix this problem. When someone gets hot, you think about Swerve Strickland. We thought about Wardlow down the line, House of Black. After they gain some momentum, they disappear. And they're working on fixing that. And that could just easily be splitting up the rosters and having people on Saturdays and Wednesdays. Maybe that's their solution. Or maybe they're actually putting some stock into creative ways to keep guys building up the card, because there's no more example of it than Wardlow. Like, they had one of the hottest guys in the wrestling world and they threw ice water on it and then left him in the freezer and then brought him back out. And he's not been the same since. So they need to fix this very soon.
I think this is the biggest problem AEW has is hot acts disappearing or not being featured. And look, man, I know we bitch about it. We bitch about it regularly. House of Black, where are they at? Where are they at? If they were there every week, some other talent that someone else likes would go away. Like, this is the problem of only having a 2-hour flagship show and you're trying to get this massive roster time. Maybe having these 2 shows would be beneficial. I hope they fix this, man, because Swerve, I think, is a world champion in waiting. I think he's so good. And House of Black, obviously, I think is probably your most interesting act you have as far as visually, presentation. You put the titles on them, and we haven't seen a lot of them. So, man, Tony Khan, AEW, everybody in the back, please find ways to fix this.
I think if Tony Khan wants to do research and sit down and watch, 2001 WWF is the perfect example about how to manage a top-heavy roster of getting guys involved. And I know 2001 is known for the invasion thing, but if you go prior to that, the build-up to WrestleMania 17, that roster was as stacked as ever with guys like The Rock and Austin. But don't forget Kurt Angle, Kane, Undertaker. You had ways to get Mankind. You got guys on this roster figuring out ways to make them feel important. And not to mention the mid-card, too, was absolutely stacked.
Loaded.
So look at how they managed that. And they didn't have a brand split. They had 4 hours of TV. It was before Raw went to 3. They had 2 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown on Thursdays, and then they had pay-per-views. And, of course, they had the Sunday shows and Saturday shows, which they were not building meaningful story there. So they figured it out. So there's got to be a way to do it.
Yeah.
So we also have an update on Griff Garrison. You guys talked about him on the flagship this week, but according to Brian Pillman Jr., it seems Garrison is getting closer to an in-ring return. He had surgery for an undisclosed injury. Pillman spoke with Fightful in a recent interview, and he pretty much said he's great. And he said that at this point, in about 3 weeks, his body will be able to withstand the punishment that the business will take place on our bodies. Griff Garrison was a promising prospect that we saw involved in Varsity Blondes. He was a good-looking kid. I mean, reminiscent of the early days of Edge.
Yeah, had a Von Erich vibe to him, too.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they team him back up with Pillman and figure out a way to get them reignited in the tag division, or they go their separate ways. But
yeah, it's interesting, man, because dude, Varsity Blondes at one point were super over. They were right there neck and neck with the Acclaimed as far as like young, hot new tag team that Tony was behind. He put these kids together. Then he even threw Julia Hart in there. When Julia Hart first went over there with the cheerleader gimmick, they were hot. Dude, when we went to Double or Nothing in 2021, I was shocked how over they were. The crowd lost their shit for him. Julia Hart got pulled to go with the House of Black. I think that kind of hurt him. Then this injury hit Griff Garrison. Now we're seeing Pillman tagging with Brock Anderson and Arn Anderson in their corner. So I was just interested about Griff, because Griff definitely has the body type. He reminds me of a very young Kerry Von Erich just from his physical stature. So all the best to Griff. You can go in our archives. He visited the tavern and we talked to him early on in his career before he even signed with AEW, and good kid, has a lot of upside.
And our last story here in Quick Hitters, we have the Bloodline's own Jacob Fatu. He has yet to disappear in WTV, but we know it's inevitable. But he's with MLW. He spoke with the podcast called Bullet Cast, and he was asked the question that everybody's wondering about, because we believe he is the missing piece Maybe they decide to put Solo Sikoa in that spot because Jacob Fatu was locked up in a deal. We see Jacob Fatu tearing it up in MLW. But he was asked about this and he said, do I want to be there? Yeah, absolutely. But then again, I didn't expect to be at MLW this long. It's really in God's hands. I'm thankful for it. He continues to say, I love what they're doing over there. The feeling of what they're doing is real. If you ask me, it's God's timing. I'm going to leave it at that. There ain't no telling. So I think if you infuse Jacob Fatu in this bloodline storyline, man, you just take this to another level. It can last another year.
Oh, dude. I'm not trying to hate on Solo Sikoa. I like Solo. I think he's doing a great job. I think he has more upside than a lot of their young talent, but Jacob Fatu is another level for me, man. This guy's intensity. Jacob Fatu in this storyline in any form or fashion, he's such a star. Like Solo, I had to warm up to.
Yes.
Jacob just has it. I mean, he is the guy in MLW. Him and Alex Hammerstone have basically carried that company for several years. And Jacob Fatu, if it was meant to be him in the Solo role, and that, you know, him being tied up with MLW caused them to push Solo into that position, I understand, because if Jacob Fatu was supposed to be kind of the enforcer, I buy that. This dude's scary as fuck. Like Jacob Fatu is a legit old school. Like he gives me those Ming Haku vibes where it's do not mess with this guy. He's the real deal, man. Jacob Fatu joining the bloodline in the future, like you said, it would add way more life to this bloodline storyline. Yeah,
we'll see if we see the Samoan Werewolf coming over to WB. I think it's inevitable. It's not a matter of if, it's when. But let's get into Dave's raves and hear what Dave has to say about the week in wrestling.
Dave raves.
All right, so the newsletter dropped on Friday. A lot of interesting stuff going on, but this was very heavy with the Stardom All-Star Grand Queendom show that took place April 23rd. And his match of the week took place there, and shocking, his performer of the week wrestled there as well. And this, we'll talk about in a second about what he thought about the event, but the match of the week he thought really stood out was Tom Nakano versus Julia, which took place at, as we mentioned, the Stardom All-Star Grand Queendom show in Yokohama. And he was talking about just the build up to this match. And he was saying this is Stardom's biggest grudge match. We had Nakano beating Julia for her hair in a classic match 2 years ago. He said this match was very hard hitting. At times, some of the shots of the head were very uncomfortable, as were some of the headbutts. Yeah, he noted that Nakano's face was pretty much swollen up by the end of the match. Every shot was hard. But he had said Julia in this match had more ring presence and came across a star more than anyone on the show, even Mercedes Moné. So he was comparing this match with the legendary Shinobu Kandori versus Akira Hakuto match 30 years ago. And he said that Nakano did a double arm suplex off the top rope and a tiger suplex for near falls. Julia did a high angle back suplex and also a tiger suplex. Nakano used a Northern Lights bomb, which was the finish. Hakuto beat Kandori with a Twilight Dream for a close near fall until hitting a violent screwdriver. He gave this match 4 3/4 stars. This, man, you want to talk about women's wrestling? Go out of your way to watch Stardom. This is just a promotion based on women wrestling. And this, again, we were kind of critical of Mercedes, her match quality as far as being in New Japan and also Stardom. She's learning by proxy being around these women, and she's going to be better for it when she eventually comes back to the States and whatever promotion she starts to work with, whether it be AEW or eventually WWE again. If she takes even a sliver of what she's learning here from these women, with Nakano and Julia tearing it up in the main event here, man, this is insane. When you watch this wrestling, WWE and AEW are still 4, 5, 6 years away from putting on match qualities like this.
Yeah, they lay their shit in. We say snug and stiff all the time. These ladies lay shit in, and man, if, like you said, if Mercedes can bring just a slither of this into her stuff, it's going to be worth it, her going here. I hope that she is able to bring that stuff into her repertoire, and her just going back to WWE. I don't know if she'll get to utilize the tools that she's picking up here. That's why I want to see her do a little Impact stuff, a little AEW stuff before she goes back to Stanford.
So his performer of the week was Saya Kamatani, and she wrestled Mina Shirakawa at the same event, Stardom's All-Star Grand Queendom. Talked about this match and just what they did and just the absolute show they put on. So it's interesting they talk about that match being match of the week, but she was this other match. He thought that Saya Kamatani shined brighter than anyone else on the show. It spoke volumes about what they were putting on quality-wise. But yeah, I mean, he spoke about this show. And again, if you have not watched this, you can go out of your way to check it out. Man, he said it was the biggest show in the history of the second most popular promotion in Japan. He said, so challengers going 5 for 5 and winning their titles. But he mostly talked about the 423 show drawing about 6,500 people in the building and said it was probably, honestly, one of the best shows of the year. He said whether it was better than Wrestle Kingdom at the Tokyo Dome, Revolution in San Francisco, or the first night of WrestleMania or Elimination Chamber, or the last Love retirement show for Muto at the Tokyo Dome is subject to debate, but it definitely belongs in that discussion. So again, an all-women promotion going out there, and it's not a publicity stunt. This is what they do on a monthly basis, weekly basis. They're putting on absolute crazy, amazing matches. And Stardom, All-Star Queendom, if you're looking for quality women's wrestling, check this out. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're only watching women's wrestling from the main promotion.
I mean, to put this event in the same level of intrigue of top events of the year as Wrestle Kingdom, Revolution in San Fran, or night one of Mania. I mean, and Muda's last match, like, come on. Yeah, that's enough to be like, let's check this out.
All right, so let's get to the week ahead as we wind down this Monday evening and get you guys back to watching Raw with all their 4-5 world titles.
Yeah.
The week ahead.
All right, so going on right now, we have the go-home show for Backlash on Raw, and the only thing we have announced is Brock Lesnar will return to Raw on night 2 of the WWE draft, which is happening as well. No matches announced, nothing like that, because we got VKM back in the chair rewriting stuff. So, like, why are we even going to announce anything? Because he's going to change it.
Yeah, at this point, we're just tuning in to see what kind of cowboy getup Brock's wearing.
On SmackDown, we have Bad Bunny appearing. We get Shinsuke Nakamura versus Karrion Kross, and we get the OC versus the Viking Raiders.
OC, finally. I'm not going to hate on it because I'm sure they probably just held Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows because they were wanting them to return with AJ Styles, who was on the shelf. But I'm a fan of AJ. Having AJ back is always a good thing. I'm a big AJ Styles fan, so...
This weekend, we also have WWE Backlash taking place in Puerto Rico, and the matches announced so far, the Usos and Solo Sikoa teaming up, taking on Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle in a 6-man tag match. We get the grudge match between Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar. The U.S. title is on the line. Austin Theory defending against Bronson Reed and Bobby Lashley. We get the Women's Championship on the line. Rhea Ripley defending against Zelina Vega, and then Seth Rollins versus Omos, and Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest in a street fight, which probably should main event.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Why not?
Right? We also have the Impact Wrestling show this week, as we mentioned before, that we're going to be having Trinity making her first debut there. We're going to get Impact World Champion Steve Maclin taking on Rhino. Deonna Purrazzo defending her championship against Killer Kelly. That's the Knockouts Championship. We get another 6-man tag match. Alex Shelley, Jonathan Gresham, Yui Iramura versus Eddie Edwards, Moose, and Kazarian. Chris Sabin versus Mike Bailey. And the X Division will be defended Trey Miguel versus Laredo Kid.
Dude, every Impact, they have such good matches. And their roster is sneaky good. I know we say that every week, but I'm not the mix of young talent, talent from other promotions, and then you throw Rhino in there for all the old heads. I don't know, man. I'm real high on Impact. I think they're doing a lot of fun stuff.
So a month from now, we're going to get Impact Wrestling Under Siege, which will be Friday, May 26th. We got 2 matches announced so far. Steve Maclin will be defending his championship against PCO. And we're going to also have Deonna Purrazzo defending her championship against Jordynne Grace. If Jordynne Grace loses, she can't challenge for the Knockouts title while Purrazzo is champion. We're going to get more built up there. The X Division Championship going to be defended, obviously the tag titles. But Impact Wrestling killing it. they did their run in Toronto. They did an awesome showing and worth the watch. If you guys are looking for another alternative, AEW and WWE leaving you disenchanted, Impact is a very good option. And you can check out Trinity Fatu there now.
Yeah.
And also for AEW Dynamite this Wednesday, we got a stat card main evented by MJF and Sammy Guevara teaming up against Darby Allin and Jack Perry, which the stipulation is Double or Nothing's world title match will be on the line. So if Darby and Jack Perry can get the win here, which we undoubtedly believe they will join MJF and Sammy Guevara. It will eventually be a fatal four-way match for the AEW World Championship. The Pillars match as it's being billed. This will be the main event of Double or Nothing. And this is kind of putting a lot of stock in those guys. I mean, MJF's been raised to that level, but Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, and Sammy, they're being challenged now.
Yeah, and it cracks me up because at one point Dave Meltzer he legit thought it was going to be Darby against MJF, and I'm like, how did anyone ever think this was anything but a fatal four-way? Like, it's in the booking, it's in the story they're telling. Every week we see variations of these four guys coming out. Like, we're getting a fatal four-way. Write it, signed, sealed, delivered.
On this card, we're also getting an 8-man tag match with the returning Roderick Strong teaming up with Adam Cole, the international champion Orange Cassidy, and Bandito taking on the JAS, which is the combination of Jake Hager, Daniel Garcia, Matt Menard, and Angelo Parker. So going to be a banger match. Roderick Strong obviously going to be highlighted. We got the new tandem of Orange Cassidy and Bandito. They have mutual respect now. Not sure how I feel about that, but at least Bandito's on our screen week to week.
Yeah, I want Bandito every week. I mean, that's a guy until last week with that banger match he had with Orange, he could fall into that forgotten guy category. I mean, he put on that hell of a match against Jericho that kind of put him on the radar of sign this gentleman. And who else did he have that match with? He had another big match, Ace. Who was it?
Bandito had the match with, as you mentioned, that was with Jericho, and
I'm missing.
Yeah, I forget. I would have to look it up, but he did have like two matches.
It was the Danielson match.
Oh yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
That was the match. You got the flying hug from Tony Khan.
Yeah, yeah.
We have an elite promo: Ricky Starks versus Juice Robinson, Saraya versus Willow Nightingale, and we also have a Tres de Mayo Trios Battle Royal. We're not sure what the stipulations are, but it seems like the winner will probably get a shot at House of Black. Maybe at Double or Nothing, because we're only a month away. Maybe they're building a program with House of Black from this Trios Battle Royal. And I got to say, better see House of Black on our goddamn screens next week.
Yeah, and
or this week.
Honestly, this is proof that they have a problem not featuring top talent week to week. The fact that you have to throw a battle royal together 4 weeks before your pay-per-view to build steam. It's like, man, they should have been wrapped up in a storyline. Like, I think they went away from JAS. It seemed like it was going to be JAS with House of Black, but I'm with you. I think this Trios Battle Royal is to set up something for House of Black.
So that's all we got for you guys as we wind down the 2 hours. I hope you enjoyed this Monday or Tuesday morning if you're listening on audio where you can find all our podcasts. But Chad, let's do some hyping for the tavern. Obviously, tell people where they can go and what's coming up for the debate and also with the flagship and Broken VCR.
Yeah, the turnbuckletavern.com for all of our pro wrestling stuff we have. If you're listening on YouTube or you're watching on YouTube right now, our debate has already dropped on YouTube and on Apple and Spotify. We had Ella J. She works with a host of different companies. She was in she's done work for WrestleZone. Great. Love having her on. It was her third time on the show. We talk a lot of fun. I think we get into the belt situation a little bit. We talk a little Mercedes Moné, so tune into the debate. Thursday, we'll be dropping the new flagship, talking all about the Dynamite we just previewed for you guys. And Broken VCR this week, I believe tomorrow, we are dropping A Place in the Sun, 1951. We have a bunch of episodes we're banking. We've recorded 4 episodes in 6 days. So
wow.
We're cranking them out, me and Hawk. If you're a movie fan, go find us on Apple and Spotify at the Broken VCR.
So busy week here for at Acefield Retro on Instagram. You guys can follow me. On Thursday, Honor Side with Colton. We're going to be talking everything that happens on ROH TV, whether it be an hour or 2 hours of programming we get to review. We'll see what happens. I think it's an hour based on what I saw as the match listing. And then this Friday, Shot Nostalgia, episode 14 of season 3, SummerSlam 1998. We're finally covering its Highway to Hell, Taker Austin. We got the ladder match between Rock and Triple H. That really put both those guys on the map, maybe more so Triple H than The Rock. Going to be in a great event. One of my favorite events as a kid. It would be awesome to look at it with a fresh set of eyes and see how I feel about it now going forward. The Attitude Era has been really crushing, and I appreciate the positive feedback for Shot Nostalgia. We're moving towards the end of this season and looking forward to season 4, not looking past the rest of the Attitude Era, but season 4, we have a short abbreviated season for Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994, which will be awesome to cover. Yeah. I'm going in pretty blind. I know some of the stuff that happens. I know some of the faces, but as far as in the news programming, it's one of those things that we're going to be learning on the fly and covering 2 months at a time in each episode. So we'll see how it goes. And we're there, 7 episodes. It would be a fun listen. And then we're going to be announcing what season 5 will be very shortly. We dropped a hint on Friday's show. So if you caught it, you caught it. If not, we'll announce it soon. We're going to come up with some logos and stuff to post it. But with a lot of programming staggered out, we just passed our year anniversary of Shot Nostalgia. So we are trying to get to episode 100 in a nice, neat, compact fashion. By the end of season 5, we'll be episode 100.
That's awesome.
So we'll be awesome. And couldn't ask to do it better, with anyone better than Mike Belcaster. It's been a lot of fun. And again, it's one of the passion projects that have evolved into what has been a consistent thing. I mean, at this point, over a year of every Friday, you know where to find it. And then every Saturday morning now on audio, which has been bridging that gap for those that don't watch on YouTube. It's been awesome. So, and also this Saturday, check out my social media. And if you guys are around, VPW, Victory Pro Wrestling, is having a show, Higher Limits, in St. James, New York. I'll be having a Turnbuckle Tavern table. There will also be a Remarkable Wrestling table as well. If you're interested in signing up for the school, go see Kono Capuccia, who's the head trainer there. He owns Remarkable Wrestling, and come see me, pick up some tavern stuff, and talk about the podcast. And I have a whole bunch of goodies. I got some keychains. You can pick up some whatever you want. Come chat wrestling with me and come check out some good live wrestling, VPW.
Yeah, man, that's exciting. Guys, again, theturnbuckletavern.com. Go check us out, especially Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe. Here we only have one title. We don't make participation trophy titles. So one title here. We support one title and we keep it snug and stiff. So until next week, see you guys.
Reach for the sky, boy.